This episode of the Ottawa Entrepreneurs Podcast is brought to you by Extension Marketing, the marketing agency that specializes in unique needs and budgets of small to medium-sized businesses. They provide turnkey marketing solutions that get results. You can find out more today at extensionmarketing.com. Now here's your host, Pat Whalen.
Thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show today, and I really appreciate it.
A pleasure.
Why don't we start off, Ian? You can share with our listeners who you are and your company and a bit about your background, please.
Yeah, sure, Patrick. So my name is Ian Keith, a longtime Ottawa resident. My company is called 360 Health Benefits, and we are life insurance agents, but we focus almost entirely on health and dental plans for small, medium-sized business. Doesn't matter what industry, lawyers, machine shop, garage. We really enjoy working with all different types of clients because it keeps everything fresh and avoids things getting too stale or too boring, because it's never boring when you have hundreds or so different personalities to balance at any one time. Our expertise is in benefits. That's where I kind of started my career in benefits, working for insurance companies, and then started this business in 2015. And frankly, our niche was that I know benefits very well, and we tend to be a lot more hands-on than some of our competitors. Like, we tend to do a lot of the administration or dealing with claim issues. Our goal is so that the business owner or owners are able to focus on what they do best and not be distracted by problems like this in benefits or pension issues. And when they work with a trusted professional like ours, like a trusted professional firm like our firm, they can rest easy knowing that they are being worked or being helped by a pro.
And do you have a range of business sizes that you work with? You mentioned, is there a size that's more of a niche for you guys?
Yeah, most of our clients are under 50 employees. And frankly, we're in Ottawa, Ontario. And in this city, there are a few jumbo employers, but not a lot of mid-size companies. A lot of small clients or small businesses, but not a lot of those mid-size with 200 or 300 employees. So I would say anything with 50 employees or less is our most common client, but we really have no maximum. And we could easily deal with a 200 or 300 employee firm, because the product and the process isn't that much different for a 200 employee group or a 5-person company.
So is there a minimum, Ian? I'm sure a lot of our listeners are, solopreneurs or maybe just hiring their first employees, and benefits is a conversation that's going to start coming up. So, and I think there's a bit of a misconception, correct me if I'm wrong, that, you got to have 20, 30, 40 people before you can have a benefits program. So is there a minimum? And if so, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I do hear this a lot. And when I started in the 90s, it was just 3 people. Like, you had to have 3 people. And if you only had 1 or 2, then forget it. And frankly, the industry's come a long way. And, up until maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I would still say you have to have at least 2 to have a group. But now you can do benefits for a 1-person company, solo shareholder employee, very easily. And the more employees that you add going forward, ideally, or in most cases, the cheaper it becomes for everybody. So the law of large numbers does apply, and the more people you have, the better. And we also have other solutions that are not necessarily the traditional insured benefits plan. We are doing a lot of what's called healthcare spending accounts, HSAs, which are not insurance whatsoever, but it is a way for companies to pay for personal health and dental expenses and write them off as a business expense. Yeah, so we're doing a lot of this. We have solutions for companies of all sizes. I guess we can say that.
And you started this 9 years ago. So can you take us through that point in time when you decided, what, I'm working for people, it's time for me to go and start my entrepreneurial journey?
I have some PTSD on this, because I really I got the shivers even just thinking about it, because in 2015, I was basically the only breadwinner for my household. So I had a family, I had a wife and 2 kids, and I just the insurance company I was working for at the time, Standard Life, had been bought by Manulife, And so at that point in time, I received a severance, and that was like my seed money to start the brokerage business. And frankly, those first 2 years were very, very difficult. I mean, I'm not a natural salesperson. I'm not going to go and knock on doors. Like, I'm not the guy that talks to people, random people in the elevator. It's not me. I'm much more introverted, and I tend to let my work speak for itself. But that's hard to do at the start because you haven't done any work. So the first 2 years, like I said, very difficult. And I would say after the summer of 2016 will be forever in my memory, because June, July, August, September, I did not make a single sale. So 4 months, zero revenue. And that fall, I was really thinking to myself, like, you know what? I might not make it. Like, maybe it's time to go look for a real job. And it was fun, but I'm just not right for this. And it seemed like in the course of about 6 weeks, people I had talked to before, that business came in. So within a course of 6 weeks, I obtained about 3 or 4 new clients, and good sized clients that really gave me not only just some revenue, but it gave me the confidence that I could do this. And it's basically been no turning back since then.
Wow. So think of what could have happened, right? If you would have stopped, you were that close to. So what advice would you give to someone listening that may be at that inflection point like you were? What do they do?
You know what? And frankly, I don't know if I can even give that advice, because it wasn't anything that I did overtly at that fall that resulted in business. I received the rewards from the efforts I had put in 6-9 months previous. That is, I laid those seeds and it came due. And frankly, if I hadn't put that work in, then I know for sure I would never have continued in this business. But it's such a personal decision. And I see on social media all time there'll be business owners that they'll ask other business owners, like, you know, when do you call it? When do you decide to not keep going, or to hang it up and to go get a real job, so to speak? Yeah, that's a very tough decision. And personally, I would say hold on for as long as you can. If you know in your heart that your product and your service has a market out there, it just takes longer maybe to get it going. But if you know in your heart that your product and service has appeal and there's a market there, and it just takes time, that's when you need to have the maximum amount of patience. And if it was me by myself with no dependents, I probably would have kept going until I got evicted from whatever dwelling I was in. And you like live on line of credit, like basically do everything you can to financially get through this period with the knowledge that you're probably going to be okay at the other end. But that's me.
Well, it's really interesting we're having this conversation. So there's a few points I want to touch on here. So one, for our listeners that may not understand the importance of sales when you're starting a business, I know that if I'm coaching or we're doing marketing for a startup in particular, they assume they're just going to do a bit of marketing and the sales are going to come flooding in. That's not necessarily the reality. Marketing will set the table for sales, but you still have to know how to close that prospect, how to get them to become part of your product or service that you're offering. And I think that's a really crucial point. And Ian, I'm curious if you agree with that or not.
Yeah, it's can you remind me of your question? Sorry.
Yeah, well, really the question is it's the importance of sales. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and I don't do sales. Well, you're going to have to get over that or hire somebody that can do it for you, because without sales, you're not, and you did that. You were uncomfortable with it, but you did it, and the results took some time, but they eventually came. I guess would you agree with that statement?
100%. And I would even go further to say that most aspects in anyone's life, there's a sales aspect to it.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or know it or not. But like I said, I'm not a classically good salesperson. I am the kind of person that's basically just, I always show up. I'm dependable, I'm reliable, I show up. And I put the work in, put the time in, and eventually it gets to the point where every meeting I would go to, I would not want to go to. I would force myself to go. I would force myself to walk in that office and sit down and have a business meeting. And it's so easy just to say, no, I'm just going to walk away, or I'm not going to do that because it's too hard. And if you do that, you're basically doing yourself a disservice, because the only growth comes from being uncomfortable. And as much as I don't want to be uncomfortable, it's the only way that I knew that I could have a chance of this business being a success. And also the self-doubt. I mean, you have to get over the self-doubt. Um, I, I would send out emails to people, to business owners, and they wouldn't get back to me. And I would start to take it personally, which this is business. You can't take things like that personally. And oftentimes I would assume that the business owner I'm trying to talk to saw my message and deliberately said, no, I'm not interested in that service. But in reality, there's so many people that are so busy in their lives, in their personal or their business life, that they just didn't see it, or they didn't get to it, or they might have 200 or 300 emails in their inbox that they haven't seen yet. So once you start to get that perspective, it stops being you can release some of the pressure that you've put on yourself, and stop taking things personally, which affects your self-confidence and your self-esteem. And if you don't have confidence, you are going to have that much harder time making a sale of any kind in your life.
Right. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. Before we went live, you had mentioned that your journey has led you to an exit.
Yeah.
Without breaking any confidences, can you tell us a bit about that story, please?
Yeah. So like I said, 2015 started, launched the business, and frankly, I'm 49 right now. I envisioned myself basically doing this and growing this company till I was at least like 65 or 70. I never gave it a thought about selling, even though a lot of the people in our business, my colleagues or competitors, have sold out to other consolidators or larger companies. But so we started talking to a firm, a year before the merger, back in the spring of 2023. And that conversation went for a little over a year. And in the end, we decided to make the sale and take the exit because it was a good deal. And the company that acquired us shared the values. And, I met the executive leadership team, and it was like, I didn't feel the least bit uncomfortable. And sometimes you wonder about a CEO or a CFO being a bit, pretentious or stuffy, but these were like just real people. And I'm like, yeah, I like this. Like, and frankly, running your own business can be a bit boring. Lonely. You can get lonely because you have no one to celebrate the wins with. So being part of a bigger firm also gives us a bit more, a larger family to belong to, so to speak. And basically, after we did the exit, and the exit's probably not the best word, because I'm not exiting. Like, I'm still going to continue indefinitely to do what I do and run this business. So we're definitely still looking for new clients. We're definitely still taking care of our existing ones, and we're still looking to grow. It's just, to be honest, everything is the same except for the wins aren't as sweet and the losses aren't as bitter.
Gotcha.
Because a win's not my win anymore; it's someone else's win. But still, it's still a win.
So it's an interesting exit that you are going through. You're right; it's not a complete exit; it's more almost hybrid to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, the company that purchased us, they're called People Corporation. It's public knowledge. They have been and continue to acquire businesses in the financial services market that have solid recurring revenue.
Okay.
And recurring revenue is not super common in the financial services business. As I mentioned, we are by nature life insurance agents, but we chose to specialize in a specific product. But the average person who actually is selling life insurance, they always need to be selling, because they get a large amount of commission up front and very little coming in the back end. So it's always sales, always sales. And if you have a bad couple of months, it could be really bad. But with investments or with group insurance, there's no large upfront payment. It's a constant, steady payment that usually trends to the upward over time as companies grow. So, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Let's shift the focus a little bit away. So now we've talked about your history and where you've taken the business to date. Let's talk a little bit about maybe some of the lessons you've learned along the way. So we touched on, the importance of sales. So, what else could you share with our listeners?
Yeah. Perseverance, dependability, and having confidence. So those things. So I believe some of the younger generations are getting a bit of a bad rap these days as far as not being like not showing up or not following through on the commitments that they've made. And frankly, I do believe that the reason why we keep a large majority of our clients every year is because we do what we say we're going to do within the time that we've allotted. And you learn early in business to under promise, over deliver, so that you always build yourself a buffer in pretty much anything that you do. If something's going to be ready on Monday, you tell the person it'll be ready by Wednesday, deliver it 2 days early, everything's great. And that whole like doing what you say you're going to do, I find that was very common when I started my career in the 90s, but I feel it's getting a little bit less common nowadays. And frankly, we don't have a lot of competitors in this market. There aren't a lot of professional life insurance agents that focus on benefits. And a lot of those other competitors, colleagues in the marketplace that do focus on benefits like us, they've had a head start on us. They've got a larger block of business. Maybe they're not as hungry as they used to be. So there isn't really a sense of scarcity in our market. There's lots to go around, and allows us to work with people who are like-minded with similar values, and we're able to say no to a potential client that's maybe not a good fit.
So does that become something that makes you different than the competitors right now, that you're keeping your promises?
I'm sure most of them are very good. Like they're in business today because they kept those promises.
Okay.
And it's not, when I say it's like some people are not keeping promises or doing what they say they're going to do as much. It's not so much just in our industry. I just find in society in general, there's just maybe more of a people get a free pass to just say no. I know I said I was going to go to that dinner, but I'm not going to go because I don't feel like it. I'm going to take a mental health day. I mean, so that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like I said, I never wanted the person to ever show up for a meeting I've ever had, ever. I don't want to have it, but I force myself to do these things because they are important. And that's what life is. You have to do some things that that are uncomfortable. You have to do some things that you're not exactly thrilled with because it's important.
You know, your situation was pretty unique in that you had this package from your old employer that allowed you to to launch this new business. What advice would you give to someone that's going to go through something similar? If they know a buyout's coming, they've always thought of starting their own business. Because there's two schools of thought here, right? One is, bank that money, get another job right away, and that's just bonus money. Or two, take that chance you've always wanted to take and, be reasonable about it in terms of how you stretch that money out. But what advice would you give to someone that's listening that may be coming into this situation that you've already been through?
I would say that, the most average normal people may get a windfall of money once, twice, maybe 3 times in a lifetime, maybe an inheritance, a severance, whatever, lottery winnings. I mean, there are certain times in our lives that we will get some sort of windfall. And the instinct for most people is to go out and buy a lot of stuff that they've always wanted that they couldn't afford. And that's great. You'll buy a lot of stuff, you'll enjoy those stuff, and within a matter of months or a year or two, the money's gone. The alternative is to take that money and use it to make more money. So sure, you could invest in the stock market or GICs, or you could invest it that way traditionally. But why not invest in yourself? If you've got a good idea that you are very confident that you can actually turn this into a business that can support you and then some going forward, use this opportunity to do that. But before you do that, make sure you scale back your lifestyle as much as you possibly can. Because whatever revenue projections you think you're going to have in the year 1, 2, and 3, you'll probably end up half of that. And if you don't, more power to you. But always better to assume the worst and be pleasantly surprised once the result starts coming in.
That's really good advice, Ian. And I've coached a number of people that have been in this situation that you went through. And I've told them the same thing. First of all, really trim down your personal budget. That way, whatever severance you get, let's say it's a year package, which would normally be a year based on your old spending habits. If you can curtail that a little bit, still have a good lifestyle. Maybe that 1 year is now 14 months or 16 months or 18 months. It gives you that much more time to get traction for your business. So I think anyone listening that is coming into this situation, I think that's really good advice that Ian is giving.
And if I could also just
yeah,
add one more
please.
thing, is that in addition to trimming back your lifestyle and doing some of the preliminary steps to actually build the business and get it running, like registering and getting business cards and website and all that stuff, I would strongly suggest that you get out and start building your network sooner rather than later. Because I didn't even know what a network or networking was when I started. And after 3 or 4 months, someone said, well, where are you networking? I said, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And what that led to was 4 to 5 years of hardcore pre-COVID networking of 5 to 7 events a week, breakfast, evenings, dinners, lunches, I would go to everything. And through that, I was able to build up a network of like-minded people that know me, like me, and trust me, so that they're not a potential client, then they won't hesitate to pass my name along. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, anything else, any other words of wisdom you want to share with our listeners?
Oh yeah, tons. I mean, I've got a list of words to live by, but no, the ultimate goal should be happiness. Like, frankly, I meet and have met a lot of people in Ottawa who work for the federal government, and they are basically counting the days down until they retire. Similar to how a prisoner would feel in jail. And their life can begin when they finally get free. That's no way to live. You should try to aim to live a lifestyle of happiness where what you're doing fulfills you. And that I always said, a lot of people said TGIF. For me, it was always TGIM. I can't wait to get back to Monday and start the week because I love what I do so much. Like I said, a little bit less sweet now that I don't own the company, but still, I still love what I do. And everyone should love what they do, even though that's completely unrealistic.
Great advice. Ian, where can our listeners find out more about your company and how they can reach you?
Yeah, I'm all over LinkedIn. Ian Keith, IAN KEITH. Our company's 360 Health Benefits, so it's 360hb.ca. Or if you Google 360 Health Benefits, we should come up very easily.
Thanks so much for doing this, Ian. Really appreciate you taking the time.
If your company or organization is looking to improve your marketing, go to the Extension Marketing website at extensionmarketing.com and book a discovery call today.